From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's the Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
Hey, thanks for joining me today. I have with me, this is going to be part 2 of my interview with Mark Miller. Mark and I together made the movie The Kendrick Brothers, Show Me the Father. That movie is going to be in theaters this September the 10th, 9/10. It's going to be in a theater near you, a main theatrical, and we want everybody to go see it. But Mark, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Mark is the producer of the movie. He's also the co-editor of the movie. He and I edited together on this. And for those of you who missed our interview, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and listen to that, or go to my podcast, The Rick Altizer Show, anywhere where you hear podcasts, and you can catch up on part 1, where we kind of talked about the movie a little bit and the importance of fatherhood and the movie Show Me the Father. Again, I'll give you just a quick update where we kind of look at the fatherhood of God and the importance of how we deal with God as Father. And in the movie are some very strong relational pieces, some really great stories. Tony Evans is in the movie. My Bot Radio listeners will know who he is, as well as Jim Daly from Focus on the Family. The Bot Radio listeners are very familiar with him. And as well as Stephen Kendrick, Alex Kendrick from the Kendrick Brothers. Again, for those who might not know who the Kendrick Brothers are, they are filmmakers, Christian filmmakers who've made movies such as War Room, Courageous, Fireproof, Overcomer, Facing the Giants. And this is their new movie called Show Me the Father that I was the director of and Mark was the producer. And together we edited. So something new for the Kendrick Brothers, having someone else direct and someone else produce. Usually they are the ones doing all that. And so it was a kind of a new experience for us. And we talked about that a little bit in the last week. But Mark, let's start off with, I think a great way to talk about the film a little bit is kind of the genre of this. Documentaries can be very different, many different things. And is it a film? Is it a doc? Exactly what is this thing? How would we classify this? And that's such a great question. I'm going to let you answer that one.
Well, it's funny. I've been thinking about it quite often because, I've grown up loving documentaries. I think a lot of us who maybe grew up with public television, we've seen Frontline or Nova specials. Nature documentaries or National Geographic and that sort of thing, where you have somebody like David Attenborough narrating some hunting scene of a lion or something like that out and back. And Hugo Van Lawick actually was one of the filmmakers in the Serengeti Desert and filmed all the stuff with Jane Goodall and all the monkeys and that sort of thing that I grew up thinking, wow, that's really cool. I'd love to do something like that. But this is totally different than that. It's not just this bunch of observational things we picked up and then wrote a script for some essay on fatherhood. There is very deep personal stories told in their own words. Another one of my favorite kind of genres of film is cinema verite, like the Maysles brothers or D.A. Pennebaker and people like that, who captured life as it happens. I think Maysles brothers, one of their cardinal 5 rules of filmmaking was never shoot an interview. So they weren't into interviews at all. They were all just whatever happens on camera, you observe it and that sort of thing, and then put the story together in the editing room. We're not there either. We're not on that side. And there are things like didactic essays. We see a lot of those these days, particularly political documentaries and that sort of thing. Michael Moore kind of investigating General Motors or whatever it might be. And this isn't that either. And so as I've tried to think through, how do you describe the genre of Show Me the Father? Because we have personal stories told in their own words. We also have teaching. I mean, there is there's some strong segments of teaching from Dr. Tony Evans, from Stephen Kendrick, and we have a few even motion graphics kind of describing some different elements about fatherhood. And yet it is deeply personal, and it doesn't feel to me like someone standing up and preaching necessarily or teaching from a platform. It's all still very relational, and I think that's one of the things that you brought to the table, Rick, was the relational aspect of the whole storytelling and getting people to tell their father's story in a very engaging way. And we were able to recreate some of those stories through archival production. I think we had wanted to shoot more like events and things like that. It was 2020 during the production year, and there were not many events happening in 2020 to capture. But in the Lord's wisdom and timing, we were able to spend intimate time, I think, with the different individuals of the story and capture things maybe in a far more intimate way than we could have just by following somebody around at a football game, So, I think it's genre bending in a lot of ways. I think we get the story. People have walked away from the film saying it's very cinematic. It's engaging. They're following the stories. They get deeply involved in the characters. Wanting to know what's going to happen to this person and what's going to happen to that person. So it has those elements of a narrative film, while at the same time, I can think of dozens of statements throughout the film that are, man, you could put it on a poster and think about it and meditate on it for a long time. So I don't know how you describe it, Rick, but it's been a fun journey to kind of create something in some ways new. I don't know that anyone has seen a film quite like this before.
Yeah, I would have to say that I haven't seen anything like this. This is a one of a kind because it is so emotional. Bring Kleenex, you will cry.
That's
because we talked about last week, when you start talking about fatherhood stories and your dad and fatherhood things, some people have such a strong relationship with their dad. It brings up emotion of heartwarming. I love my dad. I love him so much. And other people had really hurtful, painful relationships with their dad, and it brings that up. So, as I said last week, we showed it at the Southern Baptist Convention, had 900 pastors watched it, and there was a pastor in front of me who was sobbing. I mean, he was literally visibly shaken, sobbing. It had hit him so hard, so emotional. So, yeah, it's kind of hitting all of those moments. And normally, in the past, I've of the 4 docs that I've done, we'll spend 5 to 6, maybe 7 weeks editing. But we spent 6 months editing this, which was not what I've done before.
No.
So let's talk a little bit.
I don't know that's what we'd want to do again either.
Yeah, but the way it worked out, I think we kind of had to do that to get what we got. I think the story is so strong, and we did have different people with different perspectives, and I think together that built something that was very strong. Before I go further, I just want to cut in and say you're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio. My guest today is Mark Miller, the producer and co-editor of the new movie called The Kendrick Brothers, Show Me the Father, that will be in theaters this September 10th, 2021. And would love everybody to go. And please be praying for us as well for this movie. But let's talk a little bit, if you don't mind, kind of under the hood. So you produced it, I directed it, and we co-edited it. So let's start off kind of let's talk about our roles a little bit. How did the producer differ from the director in the way the role goes? And then we'll talk about how co-editing works. But let's talk a little bit about how this thing got made.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think traditionally, a producer is really a project manager, just making sure the thing gets done and whatever resources are required by the different team members, that everybody has access to those things and that people get paid and money flows from here to there. This is still a relatively small budget production, and so all of us ended up playing multiple roles. From a producer side, there was lots of things that I think on a larger budget project you might have parceled out to different people, have a line producer take care of all of the budgeting kinds of things and monitoring that stuff and actually cutting checks. Whereas someone else, you might have field producers and other people taking care of lining up things, on the ground. In this project, because it was relatively small crew, 4 or 5 of us maybe at the most at any one time working on it, we had to cover multiple different roles on that. So. Yeah, I think together we had a collaborative process between you and myself, and with the Kendricks, thinking about who should we interview, who should we involve into the project, and praying through that. I think that's probably one of my biggest roles early on, was to pray and pray and pray and pray and pray for not only just the project, but pray for each individual. And we're a team, and so another role, I guess, of a producer is to think about it as a team leader, just to keep the team functioning well together. So there was some liaison kind of work and stuff that I was involved in too, between director and executive producer, or between, graphic design or graphic artist, that sort of thing, and director, or all of that. So, there's that part of the job, and then there's the creative aspect of it. We're bringing it to it, different creative influence and ideas, and batting those things around. And it was very much an iterative approach. I think we all brought something to the table, and then we could mix it up and stir it around, and bring it back in and see how where it lands. But in the end, the main job is to get it done, and I'm happy to report that it's done.
Amen.
We've got the movie done, and it's a long, hard process, but praise the Lord, it's His hand at work.
Did I hear you just say that one of your jobs was just to be the guy stuck in the middle?
Pretty much. I think that's one of it. I think it is.
Oh yeah, you were great at that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Such a great partner to work with on this film. It was really great working with you. I thought it was a really good partnership. I thought we yinged and yang really well together.
Yeah, not without challenges and things like that. It's the first time we were working together, but
right.
We all had the same goal, and we all wanted to see the Father glorified. We all wanted to tell a really good story. We all wanted to create something that was of highest production value that we could. And so we could agree on all those things and work through differences, and yell at each other once in a while if we needed to. But we all love each other, and we're ready to find the right solutions in the end. And
we're passionate about what we want to see, and so and two, we hadn't worked together. The Kendricks had never worked with a director before. I had never worked with the Kendricks before, and I knew how I made movies before, which was I did everything and I made all the decisions, and in this case that didn't happen that way. It was much more collaborative, and so that was actually a wonderful thing. And I think you see it on the screen. I think you see it in the film. It's a much more powerful piece, and it kind of defies category, really, when you think about it. And the response we've seen has just been kind of out of this world. So we're hoping that it does make a big impact in people's lives on how they navigate their own belief in God as a loving, perfect Father.
Yeah.
But let's get into this editing thing. We had someone who kind of helped us put the first, my paper edit, and then kind of put together a beginning edit for us. That then kind of got us going, and then I guess around November of last year, you and I started editing in earnest, trying to finish the movie. And I think what was the original hope we were hoping to have? Do you remember a date? What we had at first? Was it the end of January we were hoping to be done?
Yeah, end of January I think was the idea.
And it ended up being June.
Yeah, that's right.
But let's talk about that process of editing, co-editing, and how that, what is editing for some of our listeners who might want to know, what is that? What does an editor do? And then how did that work, you and I kind of co-editing it together?
Yeah. Well, editing was not something that I anticipated doing this much on this project. So, as I say, we're all doing multiple roles, and this time producing and editing along with you and others. So that was kind of by accident at the beginning, not necessarily by design. But I think it worked out. I think it's been a good process. With something like this, we have these hours of interview, someone talking, sitting. And so you did the heavy lifting there of sifting through all of those interviews and reading through them and selecting, the right narrative basically to pull out of that documentary, because those interviews might have gone all over the map as far as subject matter is concerned, and piecing all that together. So that was a major part of what you had done, is in bringing consolidating all the things that we had captured and bring it down, and then being able to lay that out onto a timeline. And then there's a big question. It's like, well, what do you see? Like, this is a movie. It's not just a book. We're not just putting words out there. It's not even just a radio program, but we got to see something. And so one of my favorite parts, really, of the whole editing project was some of the archival research, trying to figure out what's out there. And we had the opportunity that we were telling stories of people who, some of them national figures, NFL players and NFL coaches, Super Bowl winning NFL coaches. And so there's lots of media out there that we could go find, and didn't even know until furthered on into the project that Sherman Smith, who we interviewed, actually spoke at a Billy Graham crusade. And there's a video of him speaking at the Billy Graham crusade in Nashville in 2000. And so then we have all of these other visual things and archival pieces, newspaper clippings, and try to figure out, okay, where does this go? How does this fit in? How does this illustrate the story? And not even just illustrate it, but how does it help put the viewer into the story?
So just for my listeners, when you're making a documentary or a movie, so you do an interview and here's a person and he's just talking, and it's just a guy talking. Well, you can't have a movie of just a guy sitting there talking. It's going to be boring. So, let's say he's talking about, we had Eddie George in the movie, and Eddie George is talking about when he won the Heisman Trophy. Okay, well, what we want to do then is go get footage of Eddie George winning the Heisman Trophy. And here they are handing him the trophy. And here's a picture of the trophy. And here he is as a football player. So you have this, we call it B-roll. You have this footage that's playing over while Eddie is talking, just so that we don't have a talking head. So a big part of what Mark was doing was finding this material, finding where it was, working with the NFL, ESPN, different places where getting the material, and then figuring out where it goes, how it's all cut together. So let's keep going there from there.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the different people that we involved in the project supplied us with a lot of their own family photography, stills and home videos and things like that. And there's a whole other process of basically reading those images, and what is the story that's being told through that image. Jim Daly, his background is horrific in a lot of ways in the way he grew up, and it turns out that his sister was pretty much the sole archivist of his childhood, and she bought a real cheap camera using like food stamps basically, and has this camera, and so they had all of these kind of gritty, oddly framed images and things of Jim Daly's childhood. And I found it fascinating to look at these and try to figure out, okay, how does this particular photograph communicate the emotion or the environment or the situation that Jim Daly's describing, some situation from his family, from his early childhood. So, that was another big process. Like for both of us, we were doing that. We were looking at these photographs and trying to figure out, where do they fit and what story is the photograph telling as well.
And that was I thought was a great collaboration that you and I did editing. Like I kind of put, like with that Jim Daly, I put the story together and kind of compiled how the story goes. But I just found stock footage of a boy out on a farm or whatever, and it didn't really relate to what Jim was talking about. And then then I had an edit that I did of here's kind of what I'm thinking the story goes, the basic, outline of how this thing would play out, and the A, B, C, and D of how you tell this story. And then you took it and then made it emotional and added this stuff and these very creative, unique things you found that you added, and it had this whole other complete different feel to the edit than what I had done. And so, and then I would go back and, well, let's tweak this a little, and you would tweak that, and we kind of would go back and forth. But I really thought what we ended up with was just something that couldn't have happened had we not been working on it together. You know, I mean, I would not have come up with anything like that and on my own at all. And so that was what I remember. I remember where I was sitting when it happened. We had you said, I'd like to take a little pass at an edit at part one of these stories we have, and you put a piece together of this intro of this story. And my mouth dropped when I saw it. It just hit the phone. Oh my gosh, you took our story and then you just made it come alive with your B-roll. It's like, we've got an editor. I was like, dude, this guy can edit. This is great. So, it's one thing to have the story put together, but then to convey it, the way you cut it, the way it's edited, the way you find B-roll that adds in archival footage, the right footage, and putting it at the right spot and the right way, connected with the music, all together creates this whole other thing. So there was this amazing skill you had that you brought to the table that was like, oh man, he started out as a producer, but he's going a whole other direction now.
Well, that's again, I think it's one of the beauties of the collaborative effort. Everybody's bringing something to the table and we're looking at it together. And then you'll say, hey, well, I found this photograph here, or I found this thing here, or what about using this piece of music? And, so we're going back and forth often, and then we're also getting feedback from Stephen and Alex. Here's some of their input or different ideas on how this could be told, or what they would think we could show, that sort of thing. So, I think it's really hard even to go back now at watching the film and say, oh, well, so and so edited this or so and so edited that. I mean, it's got everybody's imprint on it in a lot of different ways, and to me, that's really the beauty of the project, is seeing the body of Christ working together and creating something that is wholly new and different than any one of us could do on our own.
And I just think God, again, the team that God put together to make this was so good. I was so concerned about how things feel, and you were very concerned about how things think and making sure they made sense. And, together we needed that. We needed it, it needed to make sense and feel and have a powerful feeling, and Stephen
was able to bring to it the teaching element. What is it teaching? What is it demonstrating from?
Yes. What is it saying? What is it thinking? What is it saying? How is it feeling? And so together, when we watched it at the, I mentioned this last week on our interview, when we saw it at the Southern Baptist Convention, we played it for 800 pastors at the Southern Baptist Convention. That was the first time I kind of saw the quote unquote final version of our movie that we've been working on for a year and a half. I saw all the pieces together, and it really hit me how God had put this team together, and our sum is so much greater than the parts, and we're achieving something that just you couldn't get had it not been the team we had. And I'm talking about the new movie going to be in theaters September 10th. It's called The Kendrick Brothers, Show Me the Father. September 10th, I'm going to ask my listeners if you'll pray, if you'll set a reminder on your phones at 9:10 every day to pray for 9:10. September 10th, can you pray for Show Me the Father in theaters across America? And my guest today has been Mark Miller, the producer and co-editor of that movie. And Mark, what a pleasure having you on the show, man. This has just been great. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I love it. And you have also for listeners, the showmethefathermovie.com for more information about the movie. They can kind of keep track of up-to-date information there. Showmethefathermovie.com.
Yes, and you can also get info on different ministries, fatherhood ministries, that are going to be associated with our film and helping us out. So, Mark, what a pleasure, man. It has been a great year and a half, and I just appreciate you being on the show and can't wait to see what happens on September 10th.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks. If there's a show you've missed, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and catch up. Or you can listen to my podcast in iTunes or wherever you hear your podcasts. Just search for The Rick Altizer Show. Altizer is spelled Altizer. I want to thank you for listening. Hey, would you tell a friend about this show and share the love? Be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.